The Friendship War by Andrew Clements. Chapter 1. All of them. Flying from Chicago to Boston by myself hasn't been as big of a deal as my dad said it was going to be. But nothing ever is. The second I turn on my phone, it dings with 3 texts from him. First text, 12:46. Text me as soon as you land. Second text, 12:48. Your plane should have landed by now. Third text, 12:50. Are you all right? So I text him right away. All good. Just landed. Love from Boston. Dad worries. He calls it planning. But it's worry. Mom worries less because she knows I don't do dumb stuff. Not on purpose, at least. My brother Ben knows that too. Actually, Ben understands me pretty well. I understand him totally, which isn't that hard. He's 15, and he mostly thinks about 2 things: girls and music. Ben's music isn't rock or jazz or rap. It's marching band, which makes his girlfriend hunt tougher than it needs to be. At least, that's my theory. It's the whole marching with a clarinet while wearing a cowboy hat thing. However, if it hadn't been for Ben's August band camp, the entire family might be here on the plane with me, and I wouldn't be getting to spend some time alone with Grandpa. So, hooray for marching band. And if Dad had been a little less worried, then he and Mom probably wouldn't have gotten me my own iPhone a couple weeks ago. So, hooray for dads who worry. Grandpa's waiting right at the end of the walkway from the plane, just like Dad told him to. Hey, Grace. Welcome to Boston. Hi, Grandpa. You look great. I'm not saying that to be polite or something. When we all came to Massachusetts last summer, it was for Grandma's funeral. And back then, Grandpa seemed way too thin and old. He looks much better now, and when we hug, I can tell he's not so skinny anymore. The flight attendant in charge of me looks at Grandpa's driver's license. After he signs a form, we're on the move. Me with my backpack and him pulling my suitcase. Anything at baggage claim? Nope. Good. So we're headed for central parking. Unless you're hungry. Dad loaded me up with tons of food. I could survive on the leftovers for weeks. That's my son, the Eagle Scout. Once an eagle, always an eagle. And then he says, hey, did you see that link I sent you about how they're making jet fuel out of vegetable oil? Yeah, I love that. Of all the people in the world, I think Grandpa understands me best. He's a real estate agent, but he likes math and science almost as much as I do. Last week, we swapped texts while we watched an episode of Nova, and for years he'd been emailing me links to the news he found online, like the article about robots that can travel through space, and they can keep building new copies of themselves, and they do it for thousands of years until the whole galaxy gets explored. Except, I can't prove that Grandpa is really into the science stuff. He might be making himself like it because he knows that I like it. Either way, it's pretty great. At the car, Grandpa loads my gear into the trunk. How about you lean back and take a nap? When we get to Burnham, I'll wake you up for some ice cream. And I've got a surprise for you, too. A surprise? What is it? Not telling. Well, can the surprise come first before the ice cream? That gets a chuckle. Excellent idea. It's so good to hear Grandpa laugh. We get going, but I don't want to sleep. I want to stay awake and talk, especially about Grandma. Except it might be too soon for him to talk about her. It's still kind of too soon for me, too. During 3rd and 4th grades, I called her a couple of times every week, and she just let me talk and talk. I could call her about anything or about nothing. And if I ran out of stuff to say, she always had something new to tell me, especially about her garden and all the plants and insects and animals. If Grandma hadn't been so great at describing every little thing she loved, No way would I have gotten into science like I have. Anyway, I know we both miss her. He knew her for so much longer than I did. Compared to him, maybe I had hardly known her at all. It'd be nice to talk, but I did get up at 5:30 this morning, and I stayed awake to watch a movie on the plane. Once we reached the highway, the humming tires wiped me out. Where are we? I blink and look around, and I remember. The road into Burnham is up near the New Hampshire border, and it winds through hills covered with pine and maple trees. We pass old farmhouses, most of them white with green or black shutters. There are 2 apple orchards, then corn and pumpkin fields surrounded by stone walls. Land in Illinois doesn't look like this. The air feels different too. Less humid, sort of crisp, even in the last week of August. Grandpa explained once how the soil here is so rocky that it can hold moisture the way it does in Illinois. And that got us started on learning about the North American glaciers during the last ice age. We get to town center and Grandpa says, "Shut your eyes and don't peek till I say." So I close my eyes. And then I pretend I've been kidnapped and blindfolded, which is probably a weird thing to do. But it makes my observations seem like they matter. I feel the car go straight, and I slow count to 30 before we stop. Maybe a traffic light? No, a stop sign, because we move ahead. Then stop. Move ahead, and stop. And then the turn signal is clicking. Okay, so we went 30 seconds at about 30 miles an hour. If I do the math, and since going 60 miles per hour means traveling 1 mile per minute, going 30 miles per hour means going half a mile per minute. And we just traveled half a minute, so we went about 1/4 of a mile. Which is what I'll tell the police when I call them with the phone that I cleverly hid in my left sock, so they can figure out how to track the kidnappers and rescue me. The car turns left, and I count up to 115 before we slow to a stop, and I hear the turn signal again. So, almost 2 minutes at 30 miles per hour, which is 1 mile. Then, it's a sharp right, some bumps and squeaks, and a full stop. Okay, open your eyes now. I'm looking at the gravel on the parking lot, full of tall weeds, and we're next to a long brick building. Up near the roof, there's a painted sign with faded letters, Burnham Mills. I bought this whole place last week. Isn't it great? Grandpa sounds like Ben after he got his new clarinet. Yeah, it's great. And there's a lot of zip in my voice because I can tell he wants me to love it. But as I'm snapping pictures with my phone, all I'm seeing is a good spot to make a zombie movie or hide a kidnapped girl. The windows on the ground floor of the building are boarded up, and the second and third windows are mostly broken, and the brick walls are covered with graffiti. Cracked granite steps lead up to the metal doors held shut by a rusty chain and a padlock. I love this place. It cost me almost nothing, and by next year, the first floor will be full of nice little shops with beautiful houses and offices, and Riverview condos up above. Before you go home, I'm going to give you the grand tour, but let's head back to Main Street and get that ice cream. It's funny, but I can't remember Grandpa ever doing something like this before. I thought he had just helped other people buy and sell properties. And part of me wonders if he'd be tackling a project like this if Grandma were still here. I tell myself that this is scientific curiosity, but I know I'm just being nosy. A day at the ocean, a day climbing Mount Monadnock, a morning hike around Boston, and an afternoon at the Museum of Science. Grandpa is definitely back, and that makes me really happy. We've been walking so much that I'm feeling like I'll need a vacation from my vacation. The day before I fly home, we're on the front steps of Grandpa's old building late in the afternoon. He really wants to take me inside the place. Here, put this on. And he hands me an orange hard hat with a headlamp. It's dark in there? Scientifically, I understand that darkness isn't an actual condition. Light is actual, and darkness just means no light. Still, I'm not a fan. It's not dark everywhere, only where the windows are boarded up, and in the stairwells, and down in the basement. He has about 10 different keys on a string, and he's trying to find the one for the padlock on the door. The mill was built in 1849, and along the back side, that's the Kepshaw River. The water turned a huge paddle wheel to make the power. First, it was a carpet mill, then a woolen blanket mill, a cotton mill, a shoe factory, and finally a men's and women's clothing factory, which went out of business in 1946. After that, a printer and some small businesses and artists rented the space, but it's been empty for almost 15 years, which is why it was so cheap. I'm thinking it would be fine if we just look around the outside of the building, but Grandpa gets the lock open and hands me a canvas shopping bag. What's this for? In case you find something interesting. You can keep whatever you'd like. Really? Anything? Yep, I own the building and everything in it.